Hey everybody out there, it's Pastor John with your Midweek Reflection. We are continuing in the midst of our series, The Living God, talking about how we connect with God, how we seek God, how we pray. And last week we went a little more into how prayer is conversational and relational. And I think sometimes we feel like prayer is kind of like talking to a wall, and there's no one there on the other end of the line, so to speak. And maybe we even feel like that's basically what prayer is or should be. But last week we said, no, actually, prayer is not just the practice where we talk to God, but it is conversational. So how do we listen for God's voice? And what we did was we went to the scriptures and we went to a practice called Lectio Divina, which maybe some of you are practicing this week, and I hope that's been fruitful for you. But in Lectio, we go to the scriptures and we read the scriptures prayerfully. Is really a simple way of describing Lectio. We read it prayerfully. We read it listening, not just reading the words on the page, but listening for God's voice to bring those words to our hearts. And so when we think about God speaking to us, we're not necessarily looking for something new and original from God, some totally new word. We're looking for something personal from God. We want God to make His word real, and we want it to take root in our hearts and bear fruit in our lives. And God has revealed Himself and spoken through the scriptures and through Jesus Christ. And so that's what Lectio is about. This week we are going to be talking about the body in prayer, which might be an odd idea for some of you. And what I wanted to do with this time, it's going to maybe take a few more minutes, but I wanted to give a little bit of extra information, a little extra church history here that I'm not going to have time for. We're not going to have time for on Sunday. But when we talk about the Christianity's relationship with the body, and maybe with your relationship with your own body, or to use Facebook terms, it's complicated. Christianity has had an interesting, sometimes really destructive past and history with how it has taught Christians to relate to their bodies. Sometimes it has caused us to be afraid of our bodies, that our bodies are going to lead us into sin, or even worse, that we should be disdainful of our bodies, that they're bad somehow. And really, both of these are not really Christian or biblical values or ways of looking at the body. They're really Gnostic values. Gnosticism was a heresy condemned by the early church. Basically said, this isn't what we believe. This isn't what Jesus taught us. This isn't what the scriptures teach us. Some of the lost gospels, quote unquote lost gospels, are Gnostic gospels that the early church looked at and said, wait a second, this isn't all what we believe about Jesus or what Jesus taught. And so they rejected him. They said, this isn't part of our faith. And one of the main characteristics of Gnosticism is a dualism, where you have, on one hand, you have the body, and on one hand, you have the soul or the spirit. And for Gnostics, really the goal of religion or spirituality was to be released from the body, to escape from the body and become these pure souls. And so the body was really what was kind of holding us back. Was the idea of the Gnostics, and we needed to transcend the body. And this is really simplifying, maybe oversimplifying. But really, Gnosticism then kind of led in two directions for how people treated their bodies. One direction were the ascetics, and the ascetics essentially said, okay, if we need to escape the body, what we need to do is be rigorous. We need to deprive the body. We need to free ourselves from any control the body has over us, and just and so they would extreme fasting, self injury, even things like that, to mortify the flesh, so that they could really focus on their souls or their spirits and be released from the downward pull of the body. It also went in a different direction, the Epicureans, however you want to pronounce it, and they said, well, if the body doesn't really mean anything, it's really all about the soul, then hey, what the heck? We'll do whatever we want with the body, and it's not going to affect our souls. And so, they would do all kinds of whatever was pleasurable, they would do, and said, that's fine. It doesn't affect us spiritually because really we're our souls, and so the body is just kind of this house for them. But we're going to get out of it anyway. So what the heck? Treat the body, however. But for Christians, again, Gnosticism was a heresy and is a heresy. And so for Christians, what we believe is that our bodies and our souls are irrevocably intertwined this side of death. There is no here's the body over here and here's the soul over here, and somehow if I practice my spirituality really well, I'm going to separate these and escape from the body. That's not Christian at all. We go back to the very beginning of our scriptures, and God created human beings, and he actually starts with the body. He actually starts with, the dust of the earth or the clay, and then breathes his life into it. And so, yes, we're more than our bodies. We're more than, flesh and blood, but we're not, the body isn't irrelevant. And God says it is good. It is good. It is good to all of creation, including us and our bodies. Depending on your view of the afterlife, you might think that, at death, that the soul and body are separated, and I would agree with that. But that's not the end of the story. There's ultimately the new creation in which we are re-embodied in resurrection bodies, and so bodies are our past. Bodies will be our future. So the body is good, according to Christianity. And with that in mind, we have to recognize how our bodies affect our souls, and our souls affect our bodies. We know what stress can do and anxiety can do to our body. Something as simple as ulcers or heart attacks, can be stress related. So we know that our souls can affect our bodies, but it's also true that our bodies can affect our souls, for better or for worse. And so when we talk about the body in prayer, a lot of us don't think about it at all. We don't think about our bodies when we pray. We say it's about the heart. It's just about the heart. Yeah, it's about the heart. It's about the soul and all of that. But we have to acknowledge that our body, to withhold our body and disregard any importance of our bodies in prayer, has two really negative effects. One is that we are restricting God's access to us. Our experience of God is mediated to us through the body. Even our brains are part of our body, and that's how we experience God. If we don't pay attention to our bodies, we're missing out on many of the ways we might experience God. So that's one issue. And the second issue is, if we ignore the body and say, oh, it doesn't matter, don't pay any attention, what we're doing is we're leaving ourselves vulnerable to the patterns of this world and the influences of the liar, the evil one, the devil, if you will, because our bodies are important. Our bodies do affect our souls. And if we're not tending to our bodies, and if we're not really letting God have access and tend to our bodily existence, there's going to be other forces that are going to be dragging us and using our body against us. And so sometimes we might pray and pray and pray and nothing changes. Maybe that's because we're not engaging our bodies and the power that our bodies have to influence and affect our souls. Okay, so that's a lot, but that's just kind of intro, some background, some extra bonus material for Sunday, where we're going to look more at the body in prayer and even some postures that might help us to be shaped through our prayers. So anyway, that's all for now. I hope this has been helpful for you. I look forward to worshiping with you as always as we live the gospel life together. And until then, may God bless you.